Howdy and welcome. I'm Mike, your board gaming every dude, and let's take a look at 9 games that I played solo this month and see if any of them are right for you. Let's start out with Dinosaur World by Pandasaurus Games. Dinosaur World in solo mode, you don't really go against an opponent. Instead, you basically have something like an event deck. Even though you are going against another company, they're not really visible. The only way you know there's another company is you're comparing the deaths that happen in your park with the deaths that happen on the main island. So, knowing that you're basically building your own park with a series of random events messing with your park, knowing that, you can really enjoy this game. Alright, so basically in Dinosaur World, you have public actions where you are buying different genes and places for your park, as well as dinosaur pens, in order to put them on your own private island to build your own park. Then, at the end of every round, after you've taken your public action and your private actions on your park, you get to have a Jeeple tour, where your Jeeple goes through the park and the tourists get to bring in an income based on how exciting that tour was. The pros of this, obviously it's got a fun and awesome theme, and it has a nice puzzle mechanic where all the different parts of creating the dinosaurs by collecting DNA, they all fit together well. The cons can be that in the solo mode there's a lot of setup time, but you're also looking at a good 2-hour play for that setup. Next, we've got Picture Perfect by Corex Games. Picture Perfect is essentially a memory game with a beautiful setup. The cover is what convinced me to buy this. I think I picked mine up at Barnes & Noble, but you can pick it up at your local game store now as well. In Picture Perfect, you have a series of guests that have specific needs that they want met for a picture. You're taking a group picture and you are the photographer. So you are trying to get everybody happy to meet their 3 different needs, which sometimes is impossible. So sometimes you just have to pick and choose whose needs can I meet and whose can't I. Like some want to be at the front of the table and they want their face to be hidden. So you have to arrange the little standees in order to meet everyone's needs. The more needs you meet, the more points you get. You win this game by getting the highest number of points. Now, knowing that what it is you only have access to so many envelopes, say 5 envelopes, every turn, or every round, and there are 6 rounds. So you can look at 5 envelopes and remember what those are, move your people around, get them ready for the picture, and then in the next round, you might have different envelopes. So you just have to remember what those past ones were, look at your new ones, set them up to try and meet their needs, and then the next round you might have 1 or 2 different envelopes. So if you enjoy a memory game, this is great fun. It does not come with the solo variant, so I made one and I recorded how to play it, and we'll be posting that very soon if you're interested. If you don't like memory games, this might not be for you, or maybe try it out, see whether you like it. It's beautiful. The components aren't the highest quality. To be honest, some of the screens that go around your player board, your table area, were a little bit thin, but I found with just a little twisting, actually, they stood up nice and straight. So that was an easy fix. One really cool thing is that your final score is determined by a picture you actually take from your phone, and it does matter. This isn't just a gimmick, because when you take the picture from your phone, that's the picture that determines whether all the needs are met. So that could be somebody wants their face hidden, or somebody wants their face shown, or other details that are only able to be met by how you take the picture, and there are specific rules for it. That was pretty cool. That being said, I did end up trading this along just because I'm not huge into memory games, but for what it is, well done. My next one is Captive by Van Ryder Games. This is a graphic novel adventure, which is a part of a series called Graphic Novel Adventures with Van Ryder Games, and it comes in part of several seasons. I think there are 3 seasons, and there are different titles like Sherlock Holmes is in there. I picked Captive, which I believe is a part of the season 1 set. The story is that you're a father whose daughter has been kidnapped and taken to a house in the middle of nowhere, this creepy old house, mansion really, almost like a castle, and you've followed a note and you've gone there to rescue your daughter. The game starts with you entering the main door, and it's a graphic novel adventure, so it's a book, and within each pane, it lets you know your choices for where to go next. That could be following a number to a door, or it could be looking at an item in the room, which would take you to a different page and a different pane. This is very replayable because once you get all the way through the game, which you're probably going to die the first few times, but once you get all the way to the end, if you successfully complete the mission, which is of course find or save your daughter, I won't give anything away, then it takes you to a checklist at the end with objectives that you can meet, and you get points based on what objectives you've met. So of course you can replay again to try to meet more objectives. A lot like if you play a video game and once you beat the game you see there's what do they call that, like trophies that you can get based on what you've done, so you can replay to try and get more. Now, something about this that's nice is there's a character sheet, and you can build your character. I believe there's strength, dexterity, and will, and you can choose where you want points to go. You get a total of 20 points, and each, I believe it's 20 points. Is it 25, 10, 15? I think it's 20 points. Whatever. Anyway, it's a certain amount of points that you divide between those 3 to determine your character, and lots of different builds could work. You do want to have, no matter what, you're going to get into trouble with one of those, right? Because you can't be high as you need to be in all of them. So it's just whatever your play style is. But that's pretty cool. You're allowed to carry 3 items. There's a nice little checklist, and you don't have to write in the book. You can download a copy of your character sheet and write on that instead. Also, this is not given as a part of the game, but I enjoyed it a lot more when I just got a blank piece of paper and I actually drew a map as I went through. You don't have to do this, but I found as I was just flipping through, looking at the number, going to the different pages, though I could create a map in my head, it was a lot of work. And as soon as I put a map on paper, then I could see they actually built out an entire mansion and divided it among all the pages of this book, and I could make more sense of where I was going. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience then. The only downside is a personal one. With the theme, they did toy with the supernatural a little, which I personally is not a theme that I look for. However, they did provide a possible scientific explanation for everything that's happening. I appreciated that. I don't think most people would care, but in the future, I'll probably go more toward the Sherlock Holmes route, as I like more of a grounded explanation. That's it for Captive. Sweetlandia. You've seen this before if you've seen my other videos, but I pulled it out again for some plays, and I have posted a how to play solo video, as Sweetlandia does not come with a solo mode. And I believe this is by AltaPro Games. There's like 3 or 4 different publishers. Forgive me if I don't know which one to mention, but that's one of them. Sweetlandia is a bidding game where you bid against your AI opponent in order to gain different territories or buildings to build up your own Sweetlandia, your own candy, what would you call it, your own Candyland type of place. And of course you win by gaining the most points. It's just a fun little game, quick to set up in 2 minutes, maybe 3. You can play it in 15 minutes. Downside, of course, is I created the solo mode, so it's pretty basic. But check it out, see if that's for you. Mouse, Cheese, Cat, Cucumber, right here by Fight in a Box Games. I really like this publisher, and I'm looking forward to more solo modes that I've been told are coming out in the future. This month, I specifically focused on the puzzle solo game. So there are 3 different solo modes. I believe there might be more, but I know there's 3. And I wanted to do the puzzle. And what that is this game consists of 28 different maze pieces. Well, the puzzle mode lets you put all 28 of those pieces to form a, a 7 by 4 grid. And if you put the puzzle together correctly, you get the story of what happened between the mouse, the cheese, the cat, and the cucumber. It's pretty cool. You end up figuring out where the cucumber's lair is, why he's there. You figure out what the mouse did and why the cat is following around, as well as where the cheese is located on his grand throne, because he's the big cheese. I enjoyed it enough that when I finally solved the puzzle, it took me about 1 hour. I went into the instruction booklet, and it lets you know that there's actually a prequel comic for these 4 characters. So I scanned the code on the back of the book and read the prequel comic from the website, and it's an entertaining read. It's very funny. That's what this brand is all about. One of their taglines, I think it involves friendly, rambunctious fun. So, mouse, cheese, cat, cucumber, that's 2 of the 3 solo modes down. All right, I also pulled out Escape the Dark Sector for the first time and played through several times. Escape the Dark Sector finds you in the middle of deep space in the dark sector. You've been captured by some massive, scary space station place and put into a brig. Your job is to escape and find your way to your ship and get off the ship. But it's not easy. You have several different enemies and encounters that try and stop you on the way. So how this game works, it's a cooperative game. So to play it solo, you can control just 2 characters. With those 2, I guess you could control more. I guess you could go through with 3 or 4 players. But I controlled just 2 to keep it fairly simple. And each of those characters does come with their own strengths and weaknesses and their own set of character dice for those roles when it comes to taking actions, like defending yourself or attacking. So what you do after you've set up is you flip over an event card. The event card takes you to the next hallway or the next room, and it lets you know what happens in it. This is randomly done, so it's always going to be different events and different bosses. However, one word of caution is, since there are only 3 or 4 bosses, and there are only so many of the event cards, you will eventually, as you replay, see the same cards over and over again, but in completely different orders for several different combinations. That means that this game could be impossible, or it could be a little bit easier based on the composition of the deck as it gets mixed up. If you're cool with that randomness, I think you'd enjoy this. I did. If you don't like randomness, that could get frustrating. It also relies on dice rolling. So when you flip over a card and there's an event like the aliens attack you, then you roll for the aliens attack and you roll for your defense or your attack. So you're relying on those dice for success. That could be irritating for people that don't like dice. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm keeping it in my collection for at least a little longer until I actually beat it. I played it 3 times. I made it to the final boss in my second play, and I died. It is hard. It is hard. Great time. Black and white sketch art. Looks cool. Check it out. I also pulled out Surrealist Dinner Party by Resonum Games again. This is a great one to play solo. However, I made the solo mode, that's the major con, because it does not come with the solo mode. And it's a little more in-depth than the solo mode that I put together for a couple other games so that we could play them. So I did record how to play, and I will be posting that shortly. So look for that if you'd like to try this out. In Surrealist Dinner Party, you have these beautiful cards showing different Surrealist artists. There's even a little book that comes with the box with short biographies of all the different artists. This game's production value is through the roof. It's beautiful. There's even a little metal dinner tray that holds your meal items. But anyway, here's what you're doing. You're sitting at a table, and you are trying to satisfy these Surrealist artist guests that you've invited over for dinner. They all have different cravings between wine and lobsters and appetizers and desserts. You're trying to satisfy them. Your solo opponent is also trying to satisfy guests at the table. So you're in a race to meet not just your guests' needs, but also there are these, what are they called? I don't remember what the cards are called. But basically there are like these public actions that you're racing your AI opponent to meet in order to get points. And then there are 2 secret objectives that you won't see until the end of the game to see whether you or the AI opponent gets some bonus points. So that part can be kind of fun. Check it out. And finally, the Initiative by Unexpected Games. I will be honest with you, I did not enjoy this game when I first played it, the first 2 missions. As a matter of fact, after those first 2 plays, it has sat on a shelf for several months and I put it up for trade. I decided to pull it back out to play it, and I'm so glad I did, because this is an awesome game. It made me smile so big at a couple surprise points. So anyway, let me tell you about it. This game, I've never played Jumanji, but I know the idea of Jumanji, that it's a game within a game. That's the idea here. You have a comic book that you read, and in that comic book you learn about these 4 teenagers, and you're following their story. Well, these 4 teenagers find a game called The Key, and they sit down and they play The Key. When they sit down to play The Key, that's when you open up and you play The Key. So this game is called The Initiative, but the game you're actually playing on the board is called The Key. All right? So you play The Key, and during that, you are trying to solve riddles, or really it's more like code breaking. And in the first 2 missions, they're designed like a tutorial. So it's more like doing, what's that show? Wheel of Fortune, where they reveal a word and you have to guess the phrase. And so I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be 15 scenarios of me guessing the phrase, and I didn't want to do that. Looking back, 1 or 2 scenarios like that is fine. It was fun. But you're also working to manage your efficiency. So as you play The Key, the board game portion, you are given a deck of cards that you can use and place in order to take special actions. But you have to be careful, because if you place the cards in the wrong order, you can be incredibly wasteful. Run out of time. If you run out of time, you don't get to make a final guess. You just lose. But here's the good thing. If you lose, the story continues. So whether you solve whatever code you're trying to break or whatever word you're trying to unscramble, if you solve it, that's great. There are certain benefits. And if you don't, you go back to the comic book. Either way, the story continues based on how you did. So mentioning that, there's some really cool code breaking that doesn't just involve you breaking codes that happen on the board. And these could be mathematical formulas. These could be word involved. They just keep changing it up. I'm only halfway through, so I'm still looking forward to finishing. But some of the code breaking involves, I can't spoil it, but it involves more. And that's the part where I was just like, this is great. This is great fun. This is a family game. But if you're playing it solo, you can totally enjoy the experience. Absolutely love it so far. I can't wait to finish the next 7 scenarios. So that's 14 scenarios to totally go through the story. I've heard it rumored that there should be a continuation of the story. However, after those 14 scenarios, there is a way to continue replaying the game if you would like. I personally feel there's enough game I'm satisfied after the 14, but the option's there if you want it. Speaking of solo gaming, if you enjoy playing games by yourself sometimes, you can also enjoy reading a book. Check out my book, The Word Crucible, Grayson Crew, that's my author name. It's out on Amazon. Even the strong will be broken. All right, got another playlist here for some other games that you may enjoy checking out. I love you all. I'll see you next time.